is, what the training is, what's the motivation, the passion for their art. And so we started this and we've been doing it every year since then. We do it on the Saturdays of the exhibit, 10 o'clock. And this morning we have Kelly Martin Smith who's with us. Kelly was a featured artist in January for our Poitras Center pop-up exhibit. She hails from Point Capiche. She's a False River graduate, but she now lives in Doosan outside of Lafayette. And she has a wonderful story to share with you about her work and about the other things that she's engaged with. She does retreats. She takes a group to France to paint. So I think there's a wealth of information that she's going to share with you. So thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for sharing your art and for making connections to new people for us. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. So we're going to get started. I'm going to pass it down here. Okay. Well. Okay. Well, good morning. Thank you all so much for coming. I was saying that it kind of feels like parent-teacher conference day when I was being a teacher, and like you're a little bit nervous, a little bit excited, but you're ready, and so I'm ready for y'all. But I am gonna look at my notes and kind of read a little bit so that we don't go astray, because I like to talk, and we could be talking about who knows what by the end of it all. So I'll stay kind of focused, but I first want to start by saying thank you for supporting the arts in my hometown. Last year was my first time to come here, and I did Treasures, and after a lot of coaxing from Gail, I came and did Treasures, and I was astonished at the support of the community, but also at the depth of this Arts Council and like how well things were run. I really was so impressed, and it just made me feel like super honored to be able to come back to my hometown and be a part of this. And just, you know, to see that like this was happening even when I didn't realize it was happening, and now it's really flourishing, and so it's exciting to be here. So I really am honored to be here. So I'm going to start. My name is Kelly Smith, but some of you here might know me as Kelly Martin, because that was my maiden name growing up, and my business name is K Jane Art. So Jane is my middle name. And I knew that when I was thinking about what I wanted my signature for my work to be, I wanted it to be something meaningful and to represent and just kind of honor my family. So I came up with K Jane, and now that is what I go by with my business. And it's funny because a lot of people just call me K Jane. Like they see me and they're like, hey, K Jane. And so I think it's sweet because, you know, when you get married and you move forward and stuff, you sometimes lose your middle name, and it meant a lot to me. So I'm glad that I get to honor it in that way. So I'd love to tell you a little bit about where I'm from and how it all started. So we'll kind of start there, and then I'll proceed to telling you more about my artwork. I grew up, like Gail said, right here in Point Capiche Parish on a little road called Bigman Lane, not far from here. And if you know that it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's really basically just my family on that whole road. And I grew up with my grandparents and my cousins all around. And we really spent a lot of time with family. Family was important, and that's really the majority of the things we did. I played with my cousins. I grew up mostly outside, so exploring, creating. And so we rode three-wheelers, we made mud pies. My grandfather would bring in a dirt pile every summer, and we'd just dig it down to nothing by the end of the summer. And so it was a lot of exploration, a lot of fort building, tree house buildings. And when I look back, I realized that like the freedom and the play and the adventure that I had in my childhood really laid the foundation for me as a creative, as an adult. And it made it easier for me to make sense of like exploring and imagining as an adult. So I'm really grateful for the childhood that I had and the freedom that I had in that as well. As I also went to school right here at False River Academy, and you also know that that's a small school. I only graduated with just a little over 30 people, and there weren't art classes at False River Academy back then. And I'm grateful that there are now, or it's back and forth, but there wasn't there. And I'm so happy that my parents saw that there was a spark inside of me for creativity. And my mom entered me into some art classes in middle school, and she bought me every like crafting kit you could imagine. I did needle crafting and sewing and crocheting. I had all the things growing up, and so I got to explore in that way. I also remember like my poppy in Marion Glen did woodworking, and my dad would take me there. We'd go to the shop, and it was like a creative like adventure, you know. I mean, you got to see all the wood he'd create, and he let me like paint little faces on the things that he carved out, and so that was just another way of like really affirming that for me. And of course, my dad, well, I always say that I'm his only son, and so we always did projects together. And as I got older, we created so many projects, so many birthday party projects and everything. But I think that's where I really started to see that you could take an idea and you could actually bring it to life. And that's really what art is like how you can hoist your imagination and bring it to life. And I realize now that the creative permissions of my childhood was powerful. It really was, and it gave me the permission to move into this next stage. I went to college, started at LSU. I remembered I wanted to take an art class, and so I signed up for my first art class, and I was immediately overwhelmed. I got the supply list, and I had no idea what anything on the supply list was, because I had never really had formal art classes. So from that moment on, I was like, I will learn everything there is to know about art supplies and techniques. Like, we're a student, we're gonna be, not really, I mean, sometimes Dad, but most of the times I wanted to do everything right, you know? So I was like, we're gonna find out all the things, learn about it. So I worked, I learned a lot of things. I eventually transferred to Louisiana Tech and got my degree in art education in Ruston. And that actually opened up a whole new path for me, because it turned out that I was actually pretty good at teaching. And it came naturally to me, and I loved it. And over the next 15 years, I taught in lots of different settings. So I taught at an elementary setting, and then moved into middle school, and really ended my teaching career as a high school art teacher. And it's what I loved the most. And I loved being able to like inspire kids and like teach them how to express themselves, especially because I didn't have that experience in high school. So it was really rewarding to kind of live it for myself, but also lead other students to that. So after I left the classroom, I was still working at my school. I was working in branding and purchasing for my school, and I created websites for them. I learned how to use point of sale systems, and at the time I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is not where I shine. Like, how am I having to learn all this to move forward? But little did I know that God was preparing me for what was to come next in my life, right? He was really setting me up for the building skills that I needed to run my own business now. So that is how Kay Jane Art started. So we began on this journey, all of it. My childhood, my years in the classroom, those early creative projects with my family, they all led to this. They all led to this experience for me. I didn't actually start my business until 2021, after a lot of living and a lot of learning. A huge part of that life is being a mom. I have 3 amazing young children. They're young adults now. My 2 boys are here, and my daughter lives in Philadelphia. So hopefully she's here on live with us too. And being their mom has been the most important part of my creative role in my life. They've challenged me, they've inspired me, they've taught me more than I could ever teach them. I think that parenting is its own form of artistry, and if you've done it, you understand that. They've shaped me, and they've created a more compassionate and a more grounded creative. So I'm really grateful to be their mom. So in 2020, before I started my business, like so many of us, I was going through a really hard season in my life. The world was crazy with COVID. I was going through a divorce, and I was feeling like I was unsure about what the next step in my life was going to be. Like, where were we moving from there? But I knew one thing. I knew that creating brought me peace, and I knew that it brought me joy. And so I made a decision that for 6 weeks, I would just focus and paint 4 pieces every day for 6 weeks. And I did. I painted and painted, and it was healing, and it was empowering, and it was transformative. So after 4 paintings of every day, you can imagine that you kind of, come on in. Come on in and join us.
Yeah, I was gonna go back.
You can imagine that after you paint 4 pieces every day for 6 weeks, you have a lot of art, right? So I said, okay, I'm gonna do my first art show in Lafayette, downtown Lafayette. And so I popped up a table, I popped up a tent, and I said, here we go, let's say some prayers, we're gonna hope that it works. And people actually showed up. My friends showed up, strangers showed up, and I sold $1,500 worth of art on my very first showing. And if you're an artist, you know that that's a lot. And you also know that it's a lot in courage. It creates a lot of courage for you. It was really a moment of confirmation for me. It was like God was saying, you can do this. I've given you the vision, and I'll give you the provision for it as well. So it really was impactful on my journey to move forward. From there, things just started to grow. And I did a one-night show, and then I did a 3-day show, and then I did a 9-day show in Shreveport, and then I did a 2-week show in Round Top, Texas. And I was like, okay, here's what we're doing, right? So we're traveling. I started traveling and going to art shows all around the South, connecting with people face to face, which is the part I love the most, is to visit and talk with people. And while I was at a show in Atlanta, I met this lady, and she said, you know, there's this opportunity that you can go to France and you can do residencies and you can paint, and you pay a little bit to be there and people have you. And I said, you know what, that sounds amazing. I think that is what I'm gonna do, right? Like, that's what I wanna do. And sure enough, when I came home, God said, wait, I have another different plan for you. So right after I got home from Atlanta, I got a message on Instagram from someone saying, I see you host retreats. Would you like to host a retreat in France? And I was like, okay, wow. Yes, sure, I do. I want to do a retreat in France. So instead of paying to go to France, I ended up leading a group of 8 amazing women on a retreat in Brittany, France last summer. And in just 3 weeks from now, I'll be heading back to Brittany this summer to lead another group of 8 ladies. So what I thought could only be this big has turned into something that is just built and grown with God's guidance through it all. So to kind of sum up this portion of it, I guess I would say that, as some of you know who are artists, being an artist is really scary. It takes you out of your comfort zone over and over and over again, but it also is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. It allows me to be my truest self, and it allows me to share that with others, which is what I love doing the most. Because I don't love just telling my story, but I love hearing other people's creative stories as well. I hope that what I'm doing is empowering others to live more fully into their creative selves. So that's a little bit about my life. I'm going to ask if you guys have any questions about that portion of my life and my business and how I got started, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about my process and what I create.
Can you start over?
Yes, I'm from here. You and I talked a little bit last year.
It's being recorded, so
We're on live. I don't know if we're still on live. Did we get booted off?
It doesn't, it's not working.
It's okay. We got a little bit of it though, right? But y'all have a video. We'll post that later. You can watch it. I'll have it recorded.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, it was interesting that you picked the COVID world
Mhm.
to sort of break out, huh?
Yeah.
There were a lot of challenges about that. Of course, you had time for yourself, but how did you make connections with the art world?
You know, I think I talked to so many people traveling and doing shows that started their business during COVID. I mean, for me, again, I was going through a divorce, so I had multi-layers of things that were happening in my life. But being able to be home, and there were no other responsibilities, right? You're just there. I think it gave a lot of people, not just me, the opportunity to create. The beauty of creating in 2020, leading into 2021, which is when I kind of first started, was when the world was starting to like pop open again for a little bit. You know, we kind of did like we opened and then we went back again. And honestly, we joke all the time, like other artists that I do work with, they were like, people were ready to throw money at you. And they were. We were all like so done with just being done. So they were like, yes, I'll take one of these. What a great time to start your business, right? Or what a not true time to start your, you know, it gave you a little bit of false sense of like, oh, it's going to be like this all the time. But I don't know. For me, it was like, I needed something. I needed some kind of outlet. I needed some kind of therapy. I needed to do something. And then met people in person a little bit then, and then I started my social media, and really social media has connected me to a lot of people. It really is a beautiful thing. As much as it can be a burden in a lot of ways, it can also be a really wonderful asset to your business. So.
How many face masks did you make during COVID?
Face masks, what do you mean? Like,
Sewing them.
oh, He's not wrong. See, no, like, Daddy, that might be where I started my creative endeavors, right? You know, like whenever we were sewing masks because people couldn't find them or whatever. So I pulled out my sewing machine. My dad's like, Cajun Navy, we need 300. I'm like, you know, like that. And then I was like, okay, surely I could be doing something a little more creative than this, you know? It was fun, but yes.
What is your main interest? What medium you mainly work in?
Medium, yeah. Okay, so I'll go into that. So I'm going to talk about like my medium and like the process and stuff too. Anybody have any other questions about business or, yeah?
So what I heard in your comments was it sort of led in different ways, it unfolded for you.
Mhm.
So my question from a business standpoint, do you have a formal business plan? Did you know, reflect, or you just kind of let the grass grow where it takes you?
You see the side of the room giggling about it? A formal business plan. I just got done with a women's entrepreneurial program for 3 weeks in Lafayette. I have a formal business. I have an LLC. Wow, a business plan is not where I thrive. Or I've had to try to get my boys to help me with this, and they're like, "You are too far gone." But I try to be intentional about my business to a degree. I started my own website. I designed it. I started for the first time, I've just paid somebody to help me with my website to get it working, functioning a little better. And so I try to set goals. I try to think about, okay, I'm here. Now where do I want to go? What's my next step? To say I have a formal business plan, the answer would be a big fat no. Mostly because to sit me down to this was last night, to write a formal business plan is just not in the cards for me, I don't think.
You know, my background is formal,
Okay, yeah.
and so as I go through my life, I'm just drawn to the creative side.
Yeah.
I like the impromptu, the spontaneous.
Mhm.
And so a lot of artists struggle with who's their market or
Yeah.
how are they gonna price things, some of this formal stuff. And that's helpful to a point, but it can stifle your creative side.
It
It
can.
can absolutely interfere with it.
It can.
And you don't wanna paint yourself, no pun intended, into a corner.
Yeah.
To where you have a business now, and so the business is gonna drive you as opposed to the art driving you.
It is
and
a-
the internal expression.
It's a constant balance. I agree. I lead in my creative retreats. We really talk about that, about being free to express yourself and your work to represent you and not to represent what you think people want to purchase or buy or whatever. And last year I think I did, or the year before I did 15 markets in the year, maybe 18. It was a lot all throughout the year traveling. And you get caught up in the nobody liked these this time, so maybe I should change to whatever. And then I have to resettle and remember, paint what you love. If you love what you are doing, other people will love it too. Because the truth about our art is it's a reflection of us. It's us, right? And so not everybody's gonna like you either. Not everybody's gonna like your work. You need to just put out what's the most authentic version of yourself. And that will speak to the people it's meant to speak to, But it is. Having an art business is not for the faint of heart. If you are not a faith-filled person, you should not be in this role because you are tested daily. And truthfully, the quote about vision and provision, it's Habakkuk or Habakkuk in the Bible, and it was this quote that came up for a year of my work, and it was write it on tablets, put it where people can see, and then walk the journey. Put it out there, God will provide, and you have to wait for the appropriate time. I'm butchering that whole verse, but basically, and I have to remind myself that God's timing is better than mine, that each show is not a definition of my value or worth. My art is not either, really. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful that it takes me on adventures, but if it wasn't a part of me, I am still worthy and valuable to be out in the world, So yeah, it does. It's a hard balance. Hear about all of my process? Okay, here we go. I have a page for that too, because I'll definitely forget to tell y'all. So these paper pieces, this size, are kind of an example of when I said I'd lay down 4 pieces and paint. This is pretty much what I was doing at the time. 4 of these, I would tape them down, and I was creating with mixed media. So it was watercolor, pastels, there's ink in here. I stitch things into my pieces. There's hymnal pages, sewing pattern papers in here. Really, anything in the studio is fair game. And anything that I find that has interesting textures or lines goes into this work. So I call these my smalls, my mixed media pieces. You'll see those back there. But as life evolves, this feels like home, this feels like therapy work to me because it still is, right? But as life evolves and we mature as artists, I think our art matures as well, right? It changes and grows. So as I first started, I was working in these smalls, then I started playing with encaustics wax. So this is a wax piece. The pigments are actually, some of the pigments are wax blocks. So they're wax blocks, you heat them down, let them heat up, you put them on with a brush, and then each time you put a layer, you fuse it with a blowtorch or a heat gun. It needs the heat to fuse to the layer below. So I also include other pigments in here. These are chalk pastels. You can put ink into this work. What I love the most about encaustic wax is that it leaves a protective coating over everything, but it also allows this depth. So my piece back there is a partial encaustics piece as well too. And yeah, right there. And it just creates like a different level of depth that I don't think you can get when you're working in just one medium, oil or acrylic or, you know, watercolor, anything. It really grows you and changes, you know. I love the medium because it allows me to do all of those things, embed things. I also often do a lot of writing into my work, and it's spiritual. And when I first started, people would be like, oh, I can't read all of what it says or whatever, or I didn't want them to read what it says because I'm a terrible speller. That's a real thing. There's things misspelled. Every show somebody goes, I was like, it's okay, we can just fix it, it's no big deal. But you know what, I had to get over that too, like, whatever, it's just who I am, and if you don't like it misspelled, it's fine, or I'll fix it for you, or maybe I won't, and it'll just be creative, right? But I also realized that I do have words into my smaller pieces and things, but some of this words and some of the writing I do in my big pieces, it's for me. Like, I have to remember that it's for you. Like, this is your work, this is your therapy, this is your creativity. Put it in there, show it however much. If it connects with someone else, that's amazing. And if they can read all the words, that's great. And if they can't, that's okay too. Like, it still is an expression of me. So I kind of play that game with myself often in my work. But why stop with one wax when you can try two waxes, right? So just recently, actually this year, I've been collecting, it's called cold wax. And I knew that I wanted to do it. I had all the books, and as a teacher, you know, you have all this information, and it's like stored up in here. So I finally was across from a couple of different artists creating with cold wax, and they were like, "You need to try it. You'll love it. Just do it. Just do it." And I was like, "Okay, we're going cold wax." And now we're going cold wax hard because it is so much fun. So cold wax is actually a similar wax medium, and then you mix it with oil paint. And what it does is it makes your oil paint dry a whole lot faster, similar to acrylic, maybe not acrylic, not that fast, but a whole lot faster than oil paint actually dries. And it creates a matte finish on your work. So it's still sealed and captured and archival, but it doesn't have the same glossy feeling as if I were just working in oil or if I was putting a sealer over it. What I love about cold wax is normally you would create cold wax on panel board because you can tear and scrape into it and pull back lines, and you can really put work on and then peel back and get a little bit of the layer to show beneath. So this yellow actually was put on first, and then the white goes over it, and then you pull back. When you work in cold wax, I predominantly use palette knives, or I use frosting, like cake frosting, whatever those little rubber tools are, yeah. So you can use that with the cold wax. So this is the adventure I'm on right now. I'm sure that I'd like to say next year, but maybe before then, I'll find something else that I think is amazing and I want to explore and try. I hope that it stays true to my voice, that it feels like me still, but it's just growing, it's just building and changing, right? And that's just who we are and how we work as well, you know? So,
Can you combine the cold wax and the hot wax in a piece?
You can. You'd have to let the cold wax completely dry and harden the way it is now, and then you can go over with hot wax, because it's kind of like going over encaustics with oil, which oil sticks and things work really well in encaustics wax because it dries them up immediately too. So if you use oil sticks, it'll dry them. But I don't know, I mean, I certainly, I say I won't do that, maybe I will, but that drying time to wait and then wait for this drying time, I probably wouldn't. I also think like in caustics wax, I've slowed down in caustics a little because it's toxic, you have to have great ventilation, it's messy, I'm already messy, it is, in addition to me being messy, it is messy, and it doesn't travel well, surprisingly. If you leave it in the van for too long, things will happen to it. It can melt, especially if it gets like super high temperatures like we have here inside of your car. Or I've been to a show one time where we were just the 9-day show in Shreveport, and I had some on the outside, and I would watch and be like, oh, we're doing good, we're good, we're good. And we got busy and talking, and I had one melting down, like, because the sun was just like beaming on it, you know? So people ask, like, in your house, it's fine. Even when people buy it from me, I'm like, just don't leave it in your car all day long. But, you know, cold wax is so much more durable. I can leave it in my car forever, and we can drive across the states, and it doesn't, you know, so it's more practical to travel and do shows with. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can you use any sealer on a cold wax?
I think you can, because this is just me guessing, but I'll try it for you. I think you can, because really it's oil, right? I mean, it's oil paint and it's got a wax coating. My friend, who is also an art teacher here with me, do you know that answer? I don't either. I think you can. You don't have to though, and you don't need to, because the wax is a sealant for it, you know, so it's not necessary. Now, sometimes I have a few pieces that I went back in after they were like this, and I put charcoal on them, so like a real crunchy charcoal, and then I like sprayed it just over that part to seal the charcoal in. So, and nothing bad happened. That's how I do life. And nothing bad happened, so it's probably fine.
Kelly, do they have different finishes on it, or it's all matte?
They're all matte.
Yeah.
All of the ones I've explored are matte. I know of 3 companies that make the wax, and I think they're all matte finish. Which this is a much glossier finish, you know, than caustics is. And you're intended to like buff these. And my friend who's only in caustic wax, she like takes the buffer out, what makes her super glossy. Mine travel. We are who we are, you know. What were you gonna?
You mentioned you're going to France. Is this a technique you're gonna take to France, and how do you pack all that stuff up and travel with it?
Good
Triage.
question.
We're not there yet. No, I'm kidding. We're not gonna stress about that yet. No, I will not do either of these techniques while we're in France. I will do the mixed media, and we'll do paper pieces. We actually are gonna do a lot of creative exploring. We're gonna do some cyanotypes while we're there. We're gonna do some hammer pounding to Tikizomi. If you know what that is, it's like where you take flowers and you hammer it into the fabric and it transfers the ink from them or onto paper. While we're there, we go to other artist workshops, clinics and stuff, so we will do ceramics while we're there. We go to a glass blowing studio. So we get to see and meet other artists from France while we're there. But yes, this does not travel to that degree. However, the travel, last year I left stuff in France. So with the lady there, and so a lot of my stuff is there that I can reuse, but I'm still having to pack and travel with stuff, yeah. Should be an adventure. I'm not ready yet, but I will be when it comes. Yeah, any other questions about the medium or the supplies? No? Okay, well, thank y'all so much. I hope you enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about
This piece? Sure. This piece is, I've had it for a few years, and I love this piece so much. And sometimes I wonder, like, how are you still with me? Why are you still here? Some people are like, do you get connected? And do you not want to let your good pieces go? I'm like, no, I want them to go. They need to go out so I can create more. But I really love this piece. This piece has so much texture in it. So these are papers underneath. It's like a handmade paper under. And the white section, yeah, I was gonna say I'll let you be the director here to the right. So the white is a handmade textured paper, and then there are hymnal pages in it as well. I think that up at the top there's some sewing pattern papers. There is definitely, you can kind of see the lines at the top. I love that in my work. It creates, the color is kind of good, the texture is good, and then the weird marks like trouser pants, like that's so, like that's, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of fun that there's trouser pants in your work. And this piece, so down here, all of the pigment in this piece below is from alcohol ink and watercolor. So I use different depths of alcohol ink and watercolor blended out, and then the white that you see that's kind of smoky up the edges is actually the encaustics wax. So I got to a point where I was like pushing and pulling with encaustics instead of like this piece is full encaustics. This one, I was like, let me try other mediums and then just accent with the encaustic wax and see what that leaves you. The other really great thing about the wax, where the gold is here, it's on top of wax, and if you ever have worked with gold leaf, I have another piece out there that's encaustics. You know, gold leaf doesn't want to stay sometimes, it's like awkward with wax. It's like wonderful. It goes on, you do it right as the wax is like kind of warm, and you put it on, it just captures it and holds. So I love the way that it works with the gold leaf too.
You start a work with a concept in mind and render it, or are you flying by the seat of your pants?
What do you think? Okay, that's a question that I get asked so many times, and my family and my people who are with me have seen me do both. Sometimes I'm always inspired by nature. Nature is probably my number one inspiration in like, which all of us, right? Like color and inspiration of things. So sometimes I'll like take a sunset picture and I'm like, oh, you're so beautiful, and I'll capture those colors and recreate it in different ways. Or I'll say like, maybe I'm gonna do like a landscape instead of just a complete abstract, right? However, not good at sticking to the plan. I will start in a little more realistic vibe, and then before you know it, it turns into like, abstract, you know? And so I don't know what it is. Like sometimes for me, it's just like playing with the medium. I think that's why I've switched some. It's exciting to me. Like I get new supplies and I'm like, what? Yes, I'm like, let's make something, you know, I can't wait. So sometimes it's just like, I want to try these things. And because of my background, and like people are like, well, my dad, we joke about this, I started doing a YouTube channel. And I did one of the videos, of course it's sped up, you know, it's like in 5-point time, but it's like, I mean, I'm not saying this, but other people might say, how do you charge so much for something that took 15 minutes? I'm like, it didn't take 15 minutes, it was sped up. But what I also like to remember, for everybody who's an artist, it might actually take me 15 minutes to do a small piece. But I've also been creating for the past 35 years. So I know how to create in 15 minutes. I know about composition. I understand color. I understand textures and depth and rhythm and movement. I understand those things. So it kind of makes everything flow a lot easier when you get to the point where you're actually doing the creating. Yeah.
So, I'm more of a realistic person.
Yeah.
So how do you know when to stop? Because
Also-
I think this is a trap, you know? You wanna play with this thing over and over and over and over, where do you stop? So how do you discipline yourself to, or
Well,
you
but
just,
he
your
said
eye
she doesn't.
and your brain tell you that's enough?
It's really funny you say that. Yes, I get to a point where I'm like, I think you're beautiful, I love you, I'm gonna move forward. However, stay in my studio for too long and you will get painted over, right? Like, that's why I'm saying, like, I can't believe that this one is still with me in all the ways. Like, it's still with me because no one's purchased it, it's still with me because I haven't painted over it yet. Like, I will, if it's there too long, I just said, I'm like, I think I'm gonna take that big one down off the wall in my studio and it's gotta go. Like, we gotta try something new over it, you know? So, yeah, knowing when to be done, I guess maybe that part is not quite as hard as like wanting to paint over. But knowing when to be done is not so bad. Attention span is not as long because that's why realism is really hard for me. I actually am a pretty decent drawer. I can draw pretty good and do these things. It's the patience, it's the sitting for that one, and I need more energy into my work, you know. So it's hard for me. But so these are not as hard because I kind of get done with them. I'm like, okay, you're good. Move over. And like, a lot of people are like, how are you so prolific? Like, how do you create so much work? But it's just like, it's not about like, oh, creating so much work. It's about like, we gotta move on. Like, I need something different. I need something new, you know? It's like, I just say like, God created you in a certain way for a reason. If he gave me ADHD, it was so that I could do this, right? So that I could be wonderful at this, so.
That's also why she uses wax, because she has taken layers off before. I have watched her paint too much on a painting and then take it off.
He's not wrong. You can. The cold wax, yeah, once it sets up, like I could not scrape back into this now. I mean, unless I just, you know, but actually this, you can reheat it a little bit with a heat gun and scrape it off. The biggest piece I've ever sold, the most exciting thing, I sold it last year, and it was 6 feet by 5 feet, and it was all encaustics wax. and I painted over it twice. So I painted it, and I was like, this is okay, and I scraped some of the wax off, and I painted again, and one of the colors I was like, I do not like this at all, and I scraped off like a ball of wax, and then painted it over, and it's old. So, you know what, maybe I needed the third one, was the charm, you know? Yeah. And yeah.
Do you have a studio that you work in, a formal area?
So when I first started, I had a little room in my house. It's called the craft room, and we built the house with that intention of it being my space. And it's like this big, right? It's like 10 by 10, and that's how I started my business. I painted in there or whatever, and then I started doing big pieces and on the floor, and then it was in my dining room, and then it took over my daughter's room, and then we were like all over. And so I had a huge shop in the back, like a 40 by 20 shop with like the tractor in it, right? And I was like, all right, here we go, we're gonna do it. So got somebody to come, and we boxed in a 20 by 24 space, and it's like 18-foot ceilings. I have a big, huge glass garage door, so it's wonderful. I mean, I still outgrow it I still am like busting up the seams. And I leave my retreats, my local retreats are in there, so every time I do a retreat, it's like calling my people, like, can y'all come help me clean up? Like, you know, we need to get some stuff out, so. You know, I mean, if you're creative at all, you just grow. If you're anybody, I mean, I don't know, me-body, you just grow, like things just grow, you know? You start here and you're like, oh, let me put that one over there, and then I'll put this one over here, and before you know it, the whole studio is covered, right? Yeah. Yeah. All right, anything else? Want to know what we're doing for dinner, or what are we doing? Thank y'all so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Thank y'all for supporting all of it. Yeah. Go check out all the things. Enjoy. Yes. Thank you
Kelly.
so much.
So now I think you realize from what you've heard today exactly what our purpose was. You get to go behind the artist and see what they're inspired by, what their training is, what their passions are, and learn a little bit about their techniques. So we are very grateful that you've taken the time to come and share your story with us. We invite all of you who are here to look at the wonderful 6 artists and their work who are selling. We have 2 here, 2 in the hallway, and 2 in the far room. They have some fantastic things for you to take home. My first introduction to Kelly was at Yellow Leaf Festival a number of years ago, and I bought one of her small pieces as a gift, and have acquired several since then. So we're grateful that you participate, and that you continue to share our story with other people, because we want to have more people involved in Treasures of Point Capee.
I really do. You know, Lafayette has a huge connection to this area. I mean, there's more people that own camps from Lafayette than New Roads, I think. And so I tell people all the time, like all of my friends who are artists, I'm like, you need to go check out New Roads and apply and whatever, and you know, put your stuff in that area. And so I do. I like I said, last year was like in awe. Like, this is unbelievable. And I always knew that there were a lot of artists in the area. Like, you know, you follow different people, and we have work from like Anita, you know, like we have all the, you know. But I mean, I'm blown away every time. So,
And when this exhibit comes down on Sunday afternoon, Monday, when the artists pick up their work, in July, we will have the next Poydras Center pop-up exhibit, which is a collaboration between the Arts Council and the Historical Society. Historical Society owns the building, and we collaborate on that project, which Kelly participated in January. So for 3 months, we had some of her artwork. She shared the space with Olivia Pass, who's an artist from West Feliciana. So they each had 15 pieces in the exhibit. And it, you know, it was a fabulous exhibit. Again, an opportunity to brighten the halls of this beautiful building and give exposure to our artists. So wonderful things going on.
Thank you for the work you're doing. It's amazing. Yeah. Take a look
Thank
around.
you all.
When did it end?
Like, pretty quickly
minutes.
after.
Right now.
Are you into yours?
You just froze.